So first, tell me why you wanted to run for state comptroller.
Sure. The comptroller's office is really uniquely situated to tackle many of the economic challenges and the income-based issues that Maryland families and small businesses are facing. And after my time in the General Assembly, on the Appropriations Committee and really understanding how helpful this office can be to families and small businesses and coming through the pandemic, I want to be able to take what I've learned and my abilities to get things done for people to help build more financially resilient communities and families in the state.
What have you been hearing from people as you're out on the campaign trail, talking to them about some of their big concerns?
Sure. Folks are looking at what it costs to buy a gallon of orange juice, just like I am. They're concerned about, rising costs, but they also are thinking long term. And I also think people are starting, whether you're an employer and you're concerned about making sure that you can weather the supply chain issues, or you're a family and you want to make sure that you can save for college or make sure your kids are doing well. People are worried about bread and butter issues at the end of the day, but I think they're also worried about making sure that we have a government that reflects their values. And so we have a lot of conversations, whether it's in living rooms or breweries or, business boardrooms about how to make sure that Maryland is a state that's supporting its families, building great public schools, building a great workforce, fostering innovative ideas to build new tech companies, but that also has a government that reflects its values, respects a woman's right to make decisions about her own healthcare choices, understands the impact of climate change and more.
Those issues I've heard in your ad. I was getting ready this morning and I heard the ad come on TV. Your opponent says that you're politicizing the office by talking about some of those issues that he says has nothing to do with the role of the comptroller. Do you agree?
So, we have 3 elected statewide leaders. We have the governor, the attorney general, and the comptroller. I think it's essential that all of our statewide leaders not only do their best to make government work better for people, but reflect the values of the state. And I'm proud that, I believe that my values are shared by the majority of Marylanders based on, polls and based on my understanding serving in office. So I think it's not about politicizing the office, it's about making sure the office is protecting taxpayer dollars, but also representing the values of Marylanders.
We know that the state has a surplus. We've heard the numbers. It's a pretty large number. How do you plan to use that money, and what do you think is the best use of it, given the state of the economy right now and the potential, recession that the state could be looking at in a couple of years? Less than that.
Yeah, certainly. So the governor and the General Assembly will, of course, decide how to spend the money. But I do think, we have $1.2 billion in surplus after putting funds into the rainy day fund. And we have to be prepared to weather any coming economic storms. And we also have to make sure that we're preparing to invest in the state of Maryland and get people to work, keep people in work, support our retirees. So when we're making decisions about how to spend surplus dollars, we have to do it with an eye towards long-term investments, but also short-term relief for families and businesses.
What does that look like?
So a couple examples. So one example is we have to make sure that we're shoring up our pension fund and our other investments for our retirees and make sure that that's certain. We have to make sure that our state employees are paid what they deserve, so that we have a working and able, ready state workforce, so that we can do the job we need to serve Marylanders better. We also have to think long term about how that money can actually build on investments for Maryland. So for instance, the federal government passed several bills over the past year that will provide more federal grant dollars to the state of Maryland than at any time in generations. Many of those dollars are competitive grants. And so we need to have matching funds available for some of those competitive grants. So when we're thinking about how to spend money, we have to make sure that we have some matching funds available. That will mean we can double or even triple some of that money to bring in to do infrastructure projects in the state of Maryland, right? We're repairing our outdated water treatment plants, making sure that we're supporting roads and transit, making sure that we're thinking through renewable energy infrastructure and preparing for the challenges of climate change, flooding and more. So we have to think about how to make sure that we're putting people to work and we're building infrastructure for tomorrow.
Looking at ways that the office is currently structured, do you have any ideas or or inklings that you would want to change about the office, talking about improving the interface online, staffing, any ideas like that?
Certainly. So I'm really excited to both modernize the office and make it more present and proactive around the state. So for modernizing, that means making sure we're bringing in a new website, right? We're providing a better, more transparent and cleaner interface for Marylanders so that they can log on, see where their taxes are, see when their refund's coming, whether you're a small business or a family, just make it easier for families and businesses to interact with state governments. And on the present and proactive side, it means re-engaging the 12 field offices that the Comptroller has around the state and making sure that the people in those offices are outward facing, right? That they're going to senior centers to talk about, here are the resources on how to make sure you can pay your taxes, meeting with local chambers of commerce to say, here are the resources in the office to help you start a small business, going to faith-based groups, going out to the community to make sure that the people of Maryland have access to the resources in the Comptroller's office. That's what I want to focus on.
Do you think that you have the resources within the Comptroller's budget to do that? Does that include expanding, talking to your partners in the legislature that you've worked with for years to get more resources to do that?
Well, I think what we first have to do any good leader needs a good team, right? So the first thing to do when you take a new office is to make sure that you have a great team that is honed in on on the central message of serving the people of Maryland to the absolute best of our capabilities. And so the first thing we'll do is understand what the team looks like and whether positions need to change or what we need to do. But that is certainly one of the things that anybody who goes into a new office should be thinking about in the first couple weeks, is really understanding who's there and the great people we have, and what needs to change to make sure we can fulfill our duties to the people of Maryland.
Do you think that it's beneficial for you to coming into state government knowing that you have those partners already, those relationships built in Annapolis, working in the General Assembly?
Absolutely. It's absolutely helpful to have relationships already with legislators, with people in Annapolis on a bipartisan basis. I have sponsored bills over the years with Democrats and Republicans. Nearly every bill I passed for the past 4 years had bipartisan support. And so having relationships really helps you to get things done for the people of Maryland. And that's what I want to do.
Looking at the gas tax, I know that was a big topic during the last session. We've heard a lot of conversations. I spoke with the current comptroller a couple weeks ago. He said that whoever comes in next really should look at a gas tax holiday, and especially given the state of the economy. Do you think that that's a good idea?
Absolutely. I think especially because we have the holiday season approaching, and last holiday season was really interrupted by Omicron. This is one of the first real holiday seasons we'll have had in several years, and we want to make sure that people are able to visit with their families, build community in a way without feeling the pinch at the pump too much. So certainly I'd be completely open and supportive of looking at a gas tax holiday. We have to make sure we pay for it, though.
Is that something, was that not done when it was done in the
first?
It was.
Yeah. So we paid for it when we passed, when I was part of the General Assembly that passed the gas tax holiday. We made sure that we paid for it. So we weren't bankrupting our infrastructure long term at the cost of short term relief. And that's what we need to do this time. And we can because of the surplus.
Gotcha. Okay. Looking at the Board of Public Works, any plans to change the way that is operated, bring more transparency to the process? Do you find it concerning the way it's operated?
So the Board of Public Works, has a history of being a little bit opaque, but I'm proud that while I was in the General Assembly, we did quite a bit to require it to become more transparent by requiring the agendas to be posted online, by requiring meetings to be streamed online so that you could find the results and understand what was happening. I did the same through the Bureau of Revenue Estimates. We passed legislation that I championed to require more transparency there. So certainly my goal is to make sure that people understand how important the Board of Public Works is, how to be involved in the process for how we spend our money. And so I will always be looking for ways to make sure that we're building more transparency into the Board of Public Works process and into our procurement process writ large.
Do you think that that's something you could do alone, or would you need to work with the legislature to get that done?
No, that's absolutely something I could do. We can do that as members of the Board of Public Works. We can decide we're going to publish our agendas online even earlier. We're going to take public testimony online. We're going to make sure there's a point person for people who have concerns about an agenda item to reach out to and get feedback from. So absolutely, that's something that we don't need legislative initiatives to do.
Do you think that looking at the potential for people, the new people coming into all of these different offices, is that something that everyone would be on board to do?
I think so. I like to believe that everybody who's running is running because we want to build a more transparent and responsive government to the people of Maryland, and I certainly believe that, and that's what I'll be fighting for.
We've heard some concerns from people who look at the slate of elected leaders who are on the ballot and say, I don't necessarily know if I want all Democrats leading the General Assembly and statewide offices. What do you say to that?
I ask people to look at the person, judge me by the content of my work and what I do. But I also say I'm an independent advocate. I've worked with Republicans, with Democrats, with independents. I've run a campaign that focuses on reaching all of the people of Maryland, and I have the support of Republicans, independents, and Democrats. And so I'm really excited about being an independent advocate for the people of Maryland, calling out waste and fraud and abuse when I see it, building a team and working together when we can to get things done for the people of Maryland. I like to joke, Louis Goldstein, Comptroller for more than 40 years, was a Democrat. He was Comptroller throughout a time when most of our government was run by Democrats, and he never had a problem calling out waste, fraud, and abuse, and neither will I.
Even within your own party?
Of course not. He didn't have a problem with it, and certainly neither will I. I haven't had a problem with it, while I've been in the General Assembly, and I look forward to being an independent advocate for the people of Maryland moving forward as Comptroller.
Brooke Lierman, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.